military changes you in very predictable ways. You are more disciplined, you have more structure, you have a very goal directed mentality, and these are expected changes that you look forward to. The place that we don't talk about as a veteran is the parts that does change, typically the way that we show up in relationships, the temperament that we recently develop, to feeling very self-critical and harsh towards ourselves and others. These are changes that you didn't expect, but it's happening and you don't know what to do with it or name it and why. And this happens because the things that we are exposed to in the military, whether it be war, whether it be hazing, the enormous stress of perfection that comes with our day-to-day job, or being a first responder, whether it be a military police to EMT. All of these things that comes with the military is both weighed between it being something you're really proud of as well as you're really shocked. And by the time you recognize that you've changed or willing to admit that you have changed, you're already out of the military. And now you're left with a baggage of symptoms that you don't know what it is or how to deal with when it comes to your mental health. I'm not only a veteran, but I'm also a clinical psychologist, and I actually help veterans through the process of talking about what happened in the military in order for them to not only receive a diagnosis if they have one, but also to be able to get resources and compensated. I want to take you down a journey of what it means to actually have a mental health claim done, and maybe even validate that the changes in you make sense. The changes within you now has a name. By the end of all of my evaluation with veterans, and I'm able to successfully give them a diagnosis, there is such relief for a lot of veterans because they have skirted around the fact that they're struggling mentally, and they suspect that they might have a particular diagnosis, but never wanted to admit it because of the shame and the embarrassment that comes with it. But having a name for what you're struggling with is actually really relieving, because the more you know about yourself, the more you can then do. And it is also a breath of fresh air to be able to say, oh, not only did I experience all this greatness with the military, but I also was left with certain scars or injuries that are psychological, that now I have a name and it makes sense why I struggled the way that I did. And it is not because you're defective or you're just damaged. It is just the natural consequences of having been exposed to the specific type of work and just the culture that comes with the military. When you get a diagnosis from a psychologist, specifically to get service connected, what we are establishing is proof that you are experiencing a cluster of symptoms and it is impacting you in a very specific way. So when you are actually working with me, we're going to start with what you were like before, then during the military, and after. And one of the first things that we have to establish is identifying a specific event or a stressor that ultimately impacted you. And I know that when I ask these questions with veterans, half of them know exactly what caused it, and the other half went through so much all the time that they don't know which of these things actually impacted them. Sometimes mental health diagnosis can arise not from something that specifically happened in the military, but a result of some of the medical conditions that you've developed that is causing mental health issues. Some of the examples could be tinnitus. The ringing in your ear can absolutely be so incessant that it actually starts grating at your mental health. And all of a sudden, your personality changes, the way you show up in relationships and social settings has changed. Everything that we end up talking about gets written up in what I call the nexus letter. And nexus is all about linking the current mental health symptoms that you have to your time in service. A nexus letter helps to establish evidence, and evidence is something that the VA values when it comes to your experience. And sometimes medical records are lost or just inaccessible, and you need a professional to be able to help tune in and narrow down your exact experience from a clinical framework like a mental health diagnosis. Well, the waiting game starts. What happens after you have submitted your claim? Well, the waiting game begins because now you have to wait to see what the verdict is. And say, for instance, it is favorable. One of the first things that it does is that it opens the door to treatment. To be able to see that you have been impacted by your military service and you've developed this mental health diagnosis now creates the door for you to get therapy, to potentially be put on medication, to get access to groups to help you through the healing aspect. Being plugged into the VA actually helps you to find a community that probably has been missing since you got out of the military. When you think about how you have been navigating your mental health now, it's been completely alone and with no support, or it's with minimal support. But when you can get service connected for your mental health, you are now getting the structure support that you have been needing since the moment you left the military. Other benefits that veterans can experience by getting service connected for mental health is financial support. By the time you are seated in front of a psychologist ready to be evaluated, you are demonstrating tremendous amount of courage. You have probably hidden behind that wall of feeling ashamed, feeling like you're not good enough or that you're inherently broken. The military absolutely teaches you how to endure, and it allows you to be incredibly successful at your job. However, there's a point in which you have to slow down and take stock of the impact that it has had on you and then go and take care of it. This step, by getting evaluated for mental health, is an investment for yourself, for your future, and for your family. If you want to learn more about the mental health claim process, head on over to my website at essentialveteranservices.com.